Hi, my name's Andrew Sears, and I'm the president of City Vision University. And in this session, I'm going to talk about the relationship between cognitive, emotional, and trauma therapies and how they can influence behavior in holistic recovery. So the model I want to use is kind of an iceberg model. So cognitive therapies really are at the level of thought and behavior management. So you have, the tip of the iceberg. These are the things that are more easy to see. Your thoughts, your behaviors, your stated beliefs, and worldview. Now, the arrow here means that at each level, this level can influence the other level in both directions, right? So then you have emotions, you have emotional therapy. So here you have CBT as an example, or DBT, emotional and relational therapies. And you have emotions and impulses. And, your thoughts and behaviors can influence your emotions, but more often, if you're really angry, you're going to have a lot of angry thoughts. So there's a certain amount of, the lower levels are kind of supporting these higher levels. So you can, try to, the phrase is fake it till you make it, behave your way out and, act like you're happy and be happy, or try to, use physical motion to try to, get yourself out of the emotional state. But there's also tools specifically for dealing with emotions and impulses. So, really the goal here, if, the first goal is thought and behavior management, here it's emotional management. And, a lower level is, your emotions are influenced by your relational and social environment and your physical health. And it also goes in both directions. But if you have a horrible relational, social environment and physical health, that's going to affect your emotions a lot. And same thing with, impulses. But then, the bottom level is this trauma. And that's really going to affect your core beliefs and your self-identity. And you have trauma therapies, and how these relate. So if you look at the model of the brain, you have the neocortex, and that's really the cognitive therapy, and you're dealing with different levels of the brain here, right? And how they're linked together. These are kind of a little more fundamental, but are harder to get to sometimes. And then you have the social emotional, that's the limbic, and then the fight or flight, that's the basal ganglia. And that's trauma therapy. So the trauma therapies are trying to address, this maybe somewhat, can be the limbic. And, for a lot of Christian recovery programs, they like to stay focused here. And that's because a lot of Christians are more focused on the cognitive, they're more focused on the behavior. I believe, to use Jesus' term, this is a little bit of the outside of the cup, right? And Jesus, said that the Pharisees are focused on the outside of the cup. So there can be a tendency to be a little more legalistic. So how do you go deeper? How do you, heal that deeper issue? And that requires different tools a lot of times. So, one of the big challenges is the difference between what I'm saying are the real core beliefs and stated beliefs and worldview. And these can influence each other. So I don't want to discount that, but, you can go through and you can, have a lot of positive self-talk and a positive, focus on scriptures that are really talking about your core identity, and focus on worship that gives you positive core identity and have solid theology. And that's going to help a lot, right? But at the same time, there's certain types of things that may be at a really deep level, and you kind of get stuck, and you may say, I don't feel loved, or I don't feel safe, or I don't feel like I'm a good person, or I shouldn't be afraid, or I shouldn't have a PTSD reaction. I mean, it's just, as someone who, has had PTSD, that doesn't help really. You have this reaction, and it's there. So how do you, not have that reaction? Well, there's a lot of trauma therapies that can deal with that. Now, part of what you have to realize, these can be more challenging to get to. Part of what we teach in our course is you have to establish a baseline of safety. And what happens is a lot of times people jump down here quickly. They're like, I know the problem, the root's here, so I'm going to try to do all the work here. And that's problematic. Often you start here because what happens is you can improve your relational and social environment. You can improve your physical health. You can improve your behaviors, and that's going to establish more safety, and then that's going to let you do the deeper work. So that's kind of how these things work. You know, also, you know, a lot of how you process these things depend on your tradition. So a lot of Christian traditions are very rational. You know, Protestants, especially coming out of, you know, Western Europe and United States, are very rational. But then you have other, you know, Christian traditions, you know, whether it's charismatic or different groups that are going to be more fluent in the emotions, and often they'll have you know, spiritual techniques to deal with that. A lot of the trauma therapy also involves the body. So, you know, that can also be useful for charismatic for people. You know, you got to get up and move and worship and things in terms of your spiritual background. So hopefully this is all helpful to recognize that, you know, these things are complementary. Now, I want to connect this with the model that we're using in our Wounded Healers course, this holistic recovery model. So here you have the three types of therapy. You have the trauma therapy, the managing core thoughts and beliefs, and the managing emotions. So those are three of the circles in holistic recovery. And then you have four other circles, and those are all behavior. And the reason why we like to focus on these is often where people get stuck is it's because they don't have the resources that they need, and they don't have the safety that they need. So, you know, we want people to do behavior. So financial, and whenever I talk about financial, this is really also about your job, about how are you educating yourself, how are you improving your career prospects? Because if you don't have the money to live in a safe, you know, home, safe environment, to, you know, take care of your health, to get medical insurance, that's going to be, you know, problematic. There's relationship choices that you make. So that's this quadrant here. There's self-care, you know, having boundaries in self-care, and then there's physical health choices. So these are all behaviors. So that's how this whole model fits in with this diagram and how all these components help. So, you know, ultimately what we're trying to do is often you start here, you try to work on the behaviors. That's going to increase your resources. That is going to give you, you know, the ability to work through the deeper stages of the iceberg. So hopefully all this is helpful. If you have questions, please ask your faculty member.